Thank you everyone for joining us for another episode of the Intuition Revolution. And today I have a beautiful guest called Chantal. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your surname, so you're going to have to say it for me. And I'd love for you to introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll get into what your business is about. I have a couple of questions to ask you. Thank you, Chantal, for joining us.
Thank you. Love being here with you, Ange, as always. Well, my surname, depending which language you're speaking it in, because I'm Australian, French, English, and it's Vanderhaeghen or Vanderhaeghen or Vanderhaeghen. So it depends which one, because we believe that it's actually Dutch origin.
Yeah, it sounds like Dutch.
Yeah, it is actually, it's Dutch origin, but we call it Frenchified because actually my grandpa was Flemish. So he came from the northern part of France. So it's just giving you a little bit of my personal history here. And I was born in Australia, lived in Switzerland and in England, all three countries a few times. So it's broadened my sense of self and who I am in ways that I didn't understand as a young woman, that I am now more as an older woman, and the appreciation of what it meant to live in different cultures and different languages and different values, even though at times I felt very lonely and isolated too, but how that, I suppose, how I developed as a woman as a consequence.
You know what? First of all, I'm very jealous of you because that's what I've always wanted. I was born French from French parents, and we only spoke French, and it felt very boring to me. We were also from quite a bourgeois background, and so I'm quite jealous of you. I'm saying this tongue in cheek because I don't really have a jealous bone in me. But at the same time, you know, I've just watched actually a webinar about diversity, and they were talking about cultural intelligence. And I think coming from different cultural backgrounds gives you that cultural intelligence, because you know that your culture impacts the way you see the world because you've seen different parts of it. So I love that so much. I acquired it through traveling, but you had it handed down. But I also relate because my kids are well, they're not all bilingual, but they're bicultural for sure. And I could see how they were rejecting some parts of their background because they wanted to fit in. So there's all sorts of things that happen with children who come from different backgrounds because they don't quite feel part of the culture they're in, but they don't feel from the other culture either, so they can feel like they're in limbo. And that's an interesting thing. And I hope that with time, this is going to be resolved in a way where people will be honored for the diversity. This is the thing. I think we've come, you and I, from cultures that promoted unity as opposed to diversity, and the generations after us and still more are promoting that diversity, which will make the world a much better place, I'm sure.
And I agree, and I like that. I never thought of it as unity versus diversity because of the way we were brought up. We were around people of different races, cultures, color, skin color as well. So with all this movement that's been happening, I was quite surprised at perhaps being considered racist, because we were brought up with, at school, we just saw each other for who we were. You know, so I'm finding this quite interesting. So I was used to diversity of language and color and all those things, to find that perhaps in some ways I was still seeing things in a certain way, you know. So that's been an interesting learning for me too. You know, and that there's a deeper level to that. And I was talking to someone about this, and I realized when I look back on some of my school friends who were Nigerian or African or, you know, from the Maghreb countries, never occurred to me to think that perhaps they're having issues because we were all foreign. And, you know, it never occurred to me perhaps their parents were feeling isolated, you know, and things like that, because they were there, they were leading good lives, you know, had often diplomat jobs. So it was really interesting, and we all just connected because we're all foreign and we all had different languages, different accents. So, you know, so it's been a really interesting journey for me to see may I need to look at a different way.
It's always good to look at our own stuff and our cultural privilege and all sorts of things. Right,
Yes,
but let's
that's
talk
right.
about you and your business. What is your business about? I'd love to hear you talk about it.
Well, my business, I started business, I realized many years ago, but didn't realize I was an entrepreneur, because in those days, about 30 years ago, I started as a massage practitioner. I'd already been doing Reiki in my life. And I didn't realize that was being entrepreneurial. All I knew was that I needed to make money, having come from the corporate world and wasn't getting my decent income again. So, looking back now, and also we didn't have the opportunities in those days like you do now. So this is actually showing my age of being able to go global, internet, all those sort of things. So for me, when I look back over the years, and I've also had a skincare range, but now I call my business Unfold Your Freedom, because I work with women. I'm a counselor. And I'll call myself an intuitive counselor, because I've been working with Reiki and energy for many years. That's what I realized. And for me, it's always been about giving women a sense of self. Even when I was doing massage, I called it joie de vivre. Well, in English, I had to call it enjoy feeling alive, because I hadn't always felt that myself. So for me, it was really important that when you walked away from the work that I'd done, and I used aromatherapy oils and Reiki and all those sort of things, that you actually walked away enjoying who you were, enjoying the breath that you take, enjoying feeling alive. But I didn't get it at the time. I've actually only, looking back, can I see what I've done? Then I started in the kitchen a skincare range, and then that developed into something more. And I realized again, it was about she who feels beautiful is free. And I really, because it was natural, and I was really wanted the magic of nature to come in, that you started to really enjoy yourself as a woman for who you are, not for who you should think you were meant to be. And using these beautiful products that are kept minimalist, simple and easy, that when you use them and you put them on your face, you become truly aware of your own beauty. That was my idea behind that. Sort of it went a little bit flat in many ways, because I was sort of a bit renegade at the time. And unfortunately, and this is where the intuition will come back to, I had a car accident, which then, and I had PTSD, violent migraines, legal stuff. So my business didn't go where I wanted. And only now, since I've been also doing more of the work with intuition and with you, Ange, do I realize that when you're in a state of trauma, your nervous system is so out of whack that you actually lose connection to something higher than yourself. And I did. I lost every sense of myself, faith, everything for quite a few years. Anyhow, that can come back to that. So then from there, I was so tired. It was too much. Then I came back to wanting to work with women again, but more on a service basis with the healing aspect. So being able to work with women online, now it's about she who feels confident is free. So I brought in it in a different way, because when you feel confident about who you are, you have a wonderful sense of freedom. And when that freedom comes a sense of joy, and there's such magnificence in that when you can come to that point. Well, for me, that's how I see it in your life. And then from there, what I did was, what really supported me was reconnecting with my intuition. I thought a big part of me had been lost. I was so busy in the paradigm of the masculine, doing and striving, but also trying to heal my body, dealing with lawyers, dealing with this, dealing with that, that a whole part of me, that spiritual side, feminine side, had got blocked. And that exacerbated the PTSD, exacerbated the depression. I made mistakes in my business because I was not connected to me in any form or manner. I was connected to this being that was too busy just trying to survive, and making decisions through fog and pain. And I got menopause at the same time. So in just this fog of no memory loss, pain, trying to make do, put on a facade, which is what we often as women do anyhow. We put on this big facade. Everything's all right in our lives, when in fact it's not. But who do we talk to and who do we share with? And that's something I really want to be able to give women, that space of being able to come and share. Because when you learn how to hold circles or hold women, and with counseling, it's all about listening, with really being there to listen to someone without judgment, with acceptance. And because it's all within you. Something I've really learned, it's within you as a person. It's just something's happened for it to hide. And sometimes you need that extra support to mirror it back to you, to be able to hold you in the space, to be able to not judge you, who doesn't judge you.
Yeah, because
That is
we
where,
judge ourselves so much already. We need
exactly
someone
right.
to help us let go of that judgment, especially
Ex-
if we've gone through something that's brought us shame, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's where I really want to emphasize with women why I share my story through podcasts and obviously my Facebook and things like that. It's because the more we start sharing our stories of what's happened to us, or, you know, other women can go, well, I'm not the only one. It's okay. I can come through, because sometimes you can even feel shame of needing help.
Yeah.
You know,
I've been
I'm
there
not going to reach.
myself, and you've helped me with your story, because as you know, I had a car accident 2 years ago, almost to the day. It's actually, no, it was the 28th of March. And I remember the date as well, because it was my ex-husband's birthday. So it's like, like,
that's
of
another
course
story,
I remember
I'm
that
sure.
date. I was like, good things happen on the 28th of March. But no, but I was so surprised at how much this accident affected me in my well-being, in my self-esteem, in my confidence. It was almost like the carpet was pulled from beneath my feet because of the pain first, the lack of sleep, and of course it affected my income dramatically. So I was like having to use credit cards. I was scraping about when I had reached a level in my business where it was like what I've always wanted to have for the past years that I'd been. So yeah, it was very tough. And I didn't expect to actually feel depressed, which is exactly what happened, which I'd never experienced before. But the more I talked to people who had car accidents, the more they shared the same story as I did. And I said, like, nobody prepares you for that. Nobody's there to hold your hand when you've been through that sort of thing, to tell you that's absolutely normal, the way you feel, and let me help you with that. But this is not your ideal client, is it? Although
no, it isn't my ideal client.
But let's talk a little bit about your ideal client, and then I want to dig into your intuition story, because this is the highlight of these interviews. I want people to understand that regular women like you and me can have powerful intuitive experience in their business, and that this should really become the norm rather than the exception.
And I totally agree with you. And that's why I really support what you're doing. It's a major paradigm change. And I think it's really important that we allow ourselves to bring. Now, I also, with the intuition, for me, it's also about the softness, the feminine, all that side, being in flow, being creative. So, you know, you've opened all that up in me. But coming back to my ideal client, what was interesting, because initially I did think it was PTSD, people who've been through trauma. But as I've gone through it, and particularly working with yourself, so then we can go into my story of how this came about. You guided me and helped me. I'm working with women without children. That has become that landed in me. So when we did the work together, and I was rabbiting on about whatever I was rabbiting on, and you went I remember you just sitting there going, yes, yes, yes. And then said, now, are you happy for me to mention what came through my akashic records? I said, yes, Ange, obviously there's something here. I know you enough now. There's this lovely subtle, but not so subtle. Okay, Chantal, just keep quiet. Let your intuition listen to this. And then it dropped in. And when it dropped into you, it dropped into me. And I went, oh my goodness, my whole body just went, yes. Every part of my body. That was knowing my intuition said that to me. So even though it's been about 4 or 5 months since and I've been developing it, ego has tried to get in there. There's no doubt that other side of me, oh no, Chantal, are you really an expert in this? Are you a thought leader in this? No, you're not, blah, blah, blah. And it's all too hard. So it's been really interesting journey of still fighting, or in a way, it is fighting, struggling with my intuition in lots of my areas I don't, but with this I did. And then when you kept saying you need to niche more, no, Ange, no, I don't need to. I'm just going to go intuitively with it. You know, this is the
I love what it's actually our ego that's portraying as our intuition. It happens, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But I didn't want to hear that, Ange. I didn't want to hear you say that. I'm in my intuition here, darling, you know, nothing else. And I'm making light of it only because I laugh now looking back at myself. Again, the stubbornness that can come out. And a lot of that also is not only ego to us, but there was an element of fear in there as well.
Absolutely.
Element of fear. you know, is this the right thing?
Relate to what you're sharing. I did it myself. Like, yeah. Twins,
and that's that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And it's wonderful. So now that I'm with this, so women with children, so I'm going to work with ambitious and successful women who have not been able to have children. So that's my thing. Because again, you're asking me to niche down even further, but they've reached a point in their lives where it's just not going to happen. And that's that moment. I know for me, when that moment came where I was told by the GP that I'd already gone into early menopause and there was no way I could have children now, that was it. It felt like my life had ended. That was it. You know, and I was devastated, but I got in the car, had a cry with my partner, and then that was it. I never worked on the grief, the sadness, the honoring of my body. All I wanted at that point was that my body stopped bleeding. You know, I went into full menopause. It took another 8 years, you know, and I resented that because it kept telling me I can't have a child. I can't have a child.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Now I'm looking at, after not having my periods now for 7 or 8 years, I'm going, oh my God, Ange, and all of that. Why didn't I honor my body for the beauty of what it gave me? Didn't give me a child, but it gave me other things, and I never honored that. So that is a real regret that I have, a real regret, you know. And I didn't know who to turn to. So again, I want to create that platform, whether you work with me one-on-one or you connect with me through my groups or whatever it is that you do, is I want to create that space where we can start talking with each other.
Yeah.
That we can share someone about these things, what it meant for us, how we felt judged as women, whether we chose to have children or not to have children, we still get judged. I'm noticing there's there's different niches here, but one commonality I find is that there's women who don't get that either you didn't want children or don't understand you couldn't, and it's not happening for you, and give you platitudes. It will happen. It's not too late. Oh, you're going to make a great mom. Oh my gosh. Only now am I realizing that didn't help me in any formal manner because we don't have conversation around it, Ange.
Oh, nobody knows how to deal with grief. That's for sure. And that's a huge, that's a huge grieving period that you have when.
Yes. It is. And I think you've just hit the nail on the word grief. We don't actually consider it as grief. You know, we think grief, and even then when someone dies, we don't allow ourselves to grieve often either. You know, if you think we're straight.
Give 3 days and that's it. You should be done.
That's it. I was going to say, because that's in Australia. 3 days, done, you should be over it. Everyone's back on track. And you're sitting there going, it hasn't even started. You're still not even out of what on earth happened, you know, whether the death was unexpected or not. So this is why I think this is really important that we do share, because the other thing, when we start to realize this, we still don't want to admit it because we're still in that male paradigm of doing, striving. But we also feel that if I actually share my emotions, I will fall apart. And you're not allowed to fall apart, particularly if you're ambitious, particularly if successful. Now, perhaps that's being incorrect too. But in that world, when you're in that male world of being ambitious and successful, there's no emotion allowed.
Yeah. And also, it's sometimes because people see you as strong, and so they don't even give you the space to be to express your emotions, because you're the strong one. You're the one who picks up the pieces for everyone. You're the one who makes things happen. And but then there's no one for you.
Yes, that's it. And thank you for clarifying that, because it's not about just ambitious and successful women, but I will be targeting more those women. It is exactly right, particularly if you're strong, exactly right. And that can be anyone, Ange. And most of us women do come across as looking as though we've got it all together. So, you know, we can't show tears. We can't show tears.
I think we're allowed more than men, but there are certain type of women who are put in a position where they can't, because they just have to deal with things. Right. That's such an amazing business, and it's such an amazing service that you offer, and very much needed. I can feel, see, your business is telling me that you're here also to help soften society and the divide between women with children and women without children. You know, all those camps, there's camps everywhere. I hate camps personally. But yeah, like, you know, softening, obviously being there for those women, but also bridging between
Yes.
all women and all men, because there's bound to be some men as well. I'm seeing some men in your
Yes.
business that haven't been able to have children and who are suffering in a similar way.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. And now this is again coming back to intuition. At the moment, my ego's going, no way would I work with men. However, it's about allowing yourself.
So
Yeah,
just get
exactly.
ready. Open to,
I know, and I know.
be open
Ange,
to the
and when
possibility. Yeah.
Yes, exactly right. And it is about, so this is coming back to working with intuition. When you work with your intuition, you open yourself to possibilities that you wouldn't even have thought about. Or considered. So that was one of them coming back. So my story with intuition in particular will come back. I would never have thought of working with women without children because it never occurred to me that was my story. I mean, like, hello.
I know what you mean. We have those blind spots that are so funny, aren't we?
Yeah. I've never talked about it with anyone, even without with my partner, not much, because he's older and he's already had his children. I look back now, even my mother kept always turning it back on her. She'd never be a grandmother, so I was silenced all round. So it never occurred to me that I might have a story to tell that could empower other women too. But I had to also start owning my own stuff.
Sure. So a little question before we dig into that interesting story about intuition in your business. Do you consider yourself intuitive?
Yes, and I always have been. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And so what's the story? Tell us the story.
What's the story?
I love stories. Stories are so good.
They are. And I think coming back to, I was always a sensitive soul, intuitive, but I didn't understand what intuition meant. So this is, again, what I'm loving about what you're doing is I do believe there's an element of education in there. It was educating me to understand that I'm actually intuitive, and then me owning that and then allowing it to be part of my life. Because I do, and I've just been reading a really good book on it too. There's a part where you do need that, what's the other side to intuition? Not ego, but you need both to support you in your
logical
business.
Mind, yeah.
The logical mind, that's it. You need the logic as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you need that container to hold it in to be able to bring the intuition in. So my intuitive story is when you put out a request on one of the closed Facebook groups for some market research, and you'd put out what they were, and I thought, I think I fit that. And it's interesting. It took me a moment to say, do I really? So again, that's when you have lower self-esteem, don't listen. But something, again, intuition, something really pushed me to say, Ange, I would like that. Am I the right person or the most appropriate? You came back, said, yes. So anyhow, we set it up and we're going through it. And out of the blue, you said to me, you asked me a question and I said, this is what I want. You goes, I've got the perfect package for you. However, it's not part of what we're meant to be doing now, because the idea with market research is that you don't promote something. So I went, again, nudge, big smack, nudge from my intuition, said, no, Ange, I want you to tell me about this now. Because I just knew, just something instinctively or intuitively told me, I need to hear this. And that's when you told me about your Kickstarter package. And I needed to think about it a bit because I had to put some considerations into place. But it was just too strong. It was too strong that I needed to work with you on this. So that was the first that huge intuition, because up until now, even though I've been intuitive for a lot of my life, as I mentioned, after the accident, I didn't know how to listen to I lost it, but then I didn't trust it. And I didn't know how to bring it back into my life because I was just too busy just trying to survive and heal myself on so many levels. So intuition was my last part. And it started again a couple of, about 8, I don't even know, it was last year. I've lost track of time with everything happening last year. When I started reconnecting back to my heart, when I started coming back into my heart center, and I used to just put my hand on my heart and allow myself to come back into my heart, that's when I began to listen to the whispers of my heart, which I now realize was me coming back into listening to my intuition.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't know that intuition comes through the heart.
Exactly right.
Mostly.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So if you have got grief, sorry.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
So if you have got grief in your heart, of course, that is going to block a lot of that. And that's why I want to do the work that I do, that you learn to, release the grief, to be able to bring your intuition in for whatever you want to do.
Powerful. And there's a background to your story as well, because what you told me was so funny is that you had decided you didn't want to work with any mentor at that point.
That's right.
Like you had taken almost like a year off and put the pressure off, and COVID was like the perfect background for you to take a step back and decide to heal yourself and focus on your own self. And that's what the first thing you said to me just before you booked. You said, I can't believe this, because you asked me. And I said, no, I'm not going to mention it. It's not the right time. And you asked me, even though you said you had almost swore to yourself that you wouldn't get a mentor in. So that was funny, wasn't it?
It was. And thank you for reminding me that, because yes, exactly. Oh, exactly. I really, really made the decision no more, because again, I was too busy listening to others. I was too busy being someone else and not myself. So that's exactly right. So that's right. So that was that nudge. That's why I needed to give myself a few days to, guess what? Listen to my intuition that this was this is the thing I needed to do. And then I did. And so when I made the decision, then everything started to fall into place. So then we started working together. And that's when you came in with working Women Without Children. And then it was like, oh my gosh, that's it. And I, even though my ego has tried to, put the seeds of doubt and fear in me, I've known in my heart, intuitive heart, that's the thing, that's where I'm meant to be working, because it just resonated in every part of my body.
And you know what? I'm really glad we're having this conversation. First, because I'm delighted for you. Because when you are truly aligned to your business and the purpose that you're meant to accomplish in your life, there's nothing sweeter than that, is there? But I also love that you're talking about the fact that it's in your entire body. You feel it in your body. And that's that's what I want every entrepreneur to feel, that they're so on course that their business energizes them. And that's when you also know that you've used your intuition in your business, because it feels completely different, doesn't it?
It does. You feel excited. You get up in the morning. Yes, sometimes I think, oh my God, what am I doing? And I can't see the wood for the trees as I'm niching down. But exactly right, Ange. You feel excited. You feel in flow. There's a different energy. There's joy, and you talk differently because you're owning it. You're actually owning it. And the other intuitive part of this was, you mentioned to me in that process, you need to get a VA.
Thought, oh God, because you wanted to get someone to do your bot for the challenge.
That's exactly right.
I want a technician to help me with this techno. I said, no, you need a VA. I knew that.
Exactly right. Now listen, ladies, that's what Ange told me. And I went, oh no, because I was worried about finances. I don't need that. I can do it all on my own. This is coming back to that, Miss Independent. And then I think it was only a few weeks later where you said it again. So you said it to me again. And then I went, okay. Because in fact, I'd contacted Dee. And then I pushed it aside. Then I went back and went, you know what? I need Dee in my life. Again, oh my gosh, is she incredible? Because she works also, now again, intuition, and I trusted your judgment as well, because always recommendations were invaluable. But when I first spoke to her, she just knew what I was talking about. What more could I want? A VA who actually gets what I'm talking about. And something happened again today between her and I. She said, oh, I knew she said, I won't go into the detail, but this wasn't just about business. This was something more than, and we knew it on one level, and it became apparent today what it was.
Wonderful.
But we both listened to something, an energy, something there. And also because we trust you, And that is the power of intuition, because then you start listening to others as well and going, okay,
As long as you bring it back to you and make sure that it feels right for you.
Yes.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh, I feel so wonderful, really wonderful. How do you receive your intuition when you do?
Now, this is an interesting one. I have it through various things. I feel it in my heart, so in a sense in my body. Sometimes I can hear something. So my father has occasionally been my guide. So I might hear a word or something. I don't actually hear the voice, but it's like a voice, but it's not a voice. It's quite difficult to explain. But it's like I hear something. And, or there's just this knowing, it just goes boom, and there's just this knowing. So it's really that. So I'm not, so there's clairsentient and clear, I'm not clairaudience as such, but and when I work with someone where the intuition comes in, I just feel it. I can feel it in your energy. There's just a sense, and there's just this knowing. Now, what I've had to learn to do also when I talk to clients or with friends, I get this strong knowing. What I do is I've got to learn to check it in 3 times with myself to make sure it's not mine, number 1. Number 2, they might not be ready to hear it. So I've had to really work with that. Or I've gone in and said, look, I don't know why I'm feeling this and why I'm saying this to you, but this is so strong coming through me. I need to share it with you, and then you do what you want with it. And then I've got to step back. And what I've found over a period of time, friends have come back and said, oh my God, you were so right. But I can't tell you why, because there was no logic at that point why that was happening. There was no logic. But I listen, and this has been happening to me over the years. And I look back over the years, you know, I've known it's been there, but I never developed it, or I suppose it was just so part of me that it never occurred to me that it was anything, that it is something so beautiful and special.
And probably you didn't understand it that well, would you say?
It's a good question. It might be, it could be, I don't know about that, Ange, because I'd have to think about that, but I think it was just so part of my life. I didn't need to, it was just there.
And we're all born, I love that you say that, because we are all born intuitive, and I want our listeners to hear this.
Yes, we are.
It's not a special gift that is fairy, you know, bestow upon you in your cult when you're born. We are all born intuitive, but it's true.
Yes.
And
I agree,
I used to put intuitive people, and especially psychic people, on a pedestal until I realized absolutely not. If you observe younger people, I will say, they're very often intuitive until they start school.
Yes.
And then the process begins. And I've seen that with my own children. It's broken my heart, and I just need to trust that they'll rekindle it at some point. But I literally saw the process of how school was drumming it out of them.
Yes. And I think something you said, coming back to understand it, I think it wasn't so much I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how to own it, because we weren't taught how to own it. And because my mum started me off on this journey, my mum was always been renegade, but when we looked back into her side of the family, I have a great aunt who lived in Sydney, so the other side of Australia to where I am, and she went into the church to make it feel all right. But in fact, she was the one that was very intuitive and psychic, okay? So you see, I didn't know how to own it.
So, my dear Chantal, where can people find you?
Well, intuitively, sorry, I just had to, that's the naughty, that's the little angels going, you know, let's have a little bit of fun.
Let's have a good laugh. Let's use your intuition to find Chantal.
That's exactly right. So that would be a good test, everyone. And if that doesn't work, because most probably it won't, you know, because it didn't for me either, you can find me on my business page, Unfold Your Freedom. I am now going to build up my link. Facebook, sorry. Yes, Facebook biz page there, and on I'm going to actually use LinkedIn a lot more, but I'm under Chantal Vanderhaeghen there. So you can find me in those 2 places. If you want to know more about my Women Without Children group, you know, it's called Women Without Children Transforming the Story. That's on Facebook. And I'll be, that's where you'll find me, and that's where you'll get all the information on what I'm doing and who I am, and get to know me. You know, let's get to know each other. And because the more you listen to yourself, you might be drawn to work with me, but you're not sure, because you still need to get to know me. So get to know, to create that trust, and then you start trusting your own intuition, because it can be still a leap of faith. Let's face it.
Absolutely. You know, it's so scary to go to therapy for the first time, or to open up that Pandora box of all our emotions. It's incredibly scary. Right. I still remember the first Well, I was a child, so it was probably easier. But I still remember the first session I had with a therapist, and it was scary.
Yeah.
As a child, I don't think I was scared of her because she was very kind, but it was about opening those emotions that had not been allowed out before and had been judged and repressed. And so she took quite a while just playing with me to show me that I could be me.
Beautiful.
And that was massive. That was massive.
Oh, and I just really felt that. And that is what we do as adults. So is just hold someone in that space with that love and tenderness. Is that tenderness.
Yeah. And that you don't have to leave a part of you at the door. Everything
exactly
can come
right.
in.
Exactly right. That's right.
As I said before, I almost wish I didn't have children so I could work with you, Chantal. But we'll have other ways to do wonderful things together. The last question I want to ask you, and it's almost like it's my favorite question of all of them. Well, I can't say that. I don't like favorites, but what would you say to someone who's afraid to use their intuition in business?
I mean, this is going to sound really harsh. Get over it. Basically, get over it. You know, that's what, Rossi, I had to sit here for a moment to say I can't say that because it sounds very harsh, but I can, exactly. And that's what makes you, it's really, I'm going to say it with lots of love and kindness. Really give yourself permission to step into this space and trust. Because basically what it boils down to, and again, this is coming back to what I was saying earlier about the way I work, when you have confidence in yourself, you have confidence in your tuition, you take that into your business and it becomes that beautiful circle of life, okay? But it is a process. It is a process where you will go forward, come back. I know I have. I'd go back and forth. Is this real or not? To the point now, yes, I can still have my moments of doubting it. But the more I practice, just do something. And I think that's what I loved about doing your Facebook challenge was sit down and think of all the little things that have happened. That is your intuition. That's a really good exercise to do.
Stage 2 is very powerful to do like a detective work of, yes, actually I have stories and I'm going to own them, because we discard these stories because it doesn't fit with the mental model that we've been given, because we don't have a model to honor our intuition. We only have, we live in a society where, and this comes to Einstein, I don't know exactly what his quote was, but where the intellect has been worshipped above the intuition and it needs to be reversed. But we don't have that model yet. So that's why this podcast, and I'm so passionate about education and putting intuition on the curriculum.
I agree with you. And as you said, in business, because when I didn't have that side of me in business, when I was so busy of the doing and the going into all the technical side and the admin, I didn't have that intuition. And then of course the car accident didn't help. But what I realized now was there was a whole part of me that just simply didn't exist. And that's when I also helped contribute me fall in a heap. So ladies, listen to what Ange is saying, what we're saying here. Do bring that in, because it made me feel complete and whole. And to bring it in business. So that's partly why, one last thing, I'm a little bit hesitant of going on to LinkedIn, but I'm going to watch you, Ange, is a little bit, I'm an intuitive counselor. What will people think? See, there's that little bit of doubt coming in. But as soon as I have that doubt, it's not going to happen.
And well, I was very scared of going back onto LinkedIn. It's going to be a year in April and nothing's happened. You know, the world hasn't fallen apart. And I talk intuition. I talk tarot in business. I talk of all sorts of things. I had one really, really nasty comment, like within the hours of joining LinkedIn, from a man who felt that he had to protect women from me because I was such an embezzler and such a fraud. And so he, on one of my very first posts, he kind of like told me that I shouldn't be prying on those weak women, you know? And it was so interesting. And I didn't have the, how do you say? I didn't have the presence of thought to report his comment or delete it. But I took it back to me. I knew there was something in me that attracted this comment, because I still felt like a fraud, and I was very scared of someone doing that. So of course I manifested it. So I owned it fully, and I took it as a sign that I needed to work on it, and it never happened again. So
there you go.
Like I did a good job of clearing that.
You did, and because we're coming to the end, but I think what you said, and I totally agree with you, and I hope that's come across to women in our own it fully.
It's taken years. It will take a long time.
Yes, exactly.
Probably.
It's a process, but start now. And you will have your doubts, you will have your moments, you will question it, but keep coming back. That's what I'd like you on. I kept coming back, because I knew I'd had it. I kept coming back, and my God, it's the best thing that I've done in my life at this point in time. Wow. Apart from many other things, but just coming back to my intuition, I just feel my world has opened up in a whole, just a magnificent way I didn't expect.
And I wanted to finish this podcast episode actually sharing with our audience how when you tap into your intuition in business, it's almost like all the doors open. Synchronicities start to happen. Things are literally put on a platter for you. That doesn't mean there's never going to be a challenge, but it's because you follow the energy. The energy suddenly opens in front of you, and the universe meets you halfway. It starts to bring its magic into it. And I think for me, that's what's been the most amazing of this journey.
And I agree with you, Ange. And I think, again, you've got to trust that it's going to happen, because initially you want it to happen very fast. I want it to, the momentum to be there now. So I'm having to go into faith that things are starting to open up. And I can't see all of it yet, but there is a change. And I'm trusting that. And and also not only trust, I'm having faith. And that's the other thing I've brought in, is having faith. That this is, as you said, and things are starting to happen, not, as I said, as fast as I'd like, because guess what? The ego comes in, to say to you, well, see, it's not happening as fast as you want, so therefore it's not happening. Okay. So you do need to be aware. So use a lot of journaling, writing, whatever it is that you need to do to work through that. Okay. To work through it.
I think we're going to leave this with our audience. I want to thank you so much for coming on this podcast episode. It's been a delight. And I can't wait for it to go live and for people to be able to connect with you and find you and your beautiful work. And I want to thank the audience as well for listening to us and coming that far. And I'll speak to you again in the next episode. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Chantal.
Ange.